Hey everyone, it's Alan over at Cobblers Plus, and we've got another project, a little bit different than what we usually do. So come join us and check out what's inside this box here. Sadly, we're not working on the box, as you can tell. It needs some work, but the gentleman requested strictly doing on what's inside here. Check it out and see what we got for you. Alright, so we're doing something a little bit different today. We're working on an accordion. I don't tend to work on too many instruments, but if it involves any forms of straps or anything like that, we do a number of those things. And so let me shift this over here so I could take this accordion out. There we go. Our goal for today is to replace the strap right here. All the other straps are in good shape. It looks like this gentleman may have even had replacements put on there, or looks like he might have put them on himself. But this one in particular is a little bit more of a challenge because it's secured directly into the instrument. So we have to take apart this panel right here to be able to get access in there and take it all apart. This other section is not too bad. Just a matter of having to unscrew it. Let's see where to go. There's a little knob right here. So we're just gonna unscrew it. There we go. We got that side out at least. So this one's not gonna be bad at all, thankfully, but I don't know what's going on the inside quite yet. So everyone watching, this is the first time also for me to see what's going on in here. And the gentleman said he hasn't messed with it either all that much. Okay, I got my little screwdrivers. Okay. Alright, so we've got everything unscrewed here. It looks like there were a few screws, so the two main ones are on each end right here. They're these longer silver ones, and they tend to be actually holding into something nicely, where there are two additional ones. I don't know if they were added as an aftermarket or what, but they were a little more wonky, a little more stripped and everything. So we've got a little button here that popped out that was inside of this hole here, so we've got to make sure that that goes back into place. Now I don't really want to lift this too much, as much as possible, so let me just peek in here and see what we got going on. Okay, I just wanted to make sure before I really lifted anything, but I don't know if anybody can see, but right down in here, it looks like this section of the strap is held on by a metal, I don't even know what that is. It looks like it might be like a little T-plate or something like that, but it's held in with a couple of screws and a ton of glue, like a lot of glue. So this is probably going to take me a little bit of tinkering with, so I'll probably have to do that off camera as far as messing around with removing that. But I'll go ahead and get that taken care of and see how far along we can get with it and really go from there. If you hear in the background there's some music playing, our neighbors are remodeling, and the guys doing the remodeling, they're loud with their music. So apologies to anybody that's getting frustrated by the sounds of music if you were planning for this to be like an ASMR video. Obviously this is a cobbler shop. We don't really do ASMR. We got hammers and machines going, so turn down the volume, I guess. I'm sorry, but the music in the background is playing. So anyways, I'll continue on and we'll get back. All right, so I thought I'd show a little bit of a close-up here, and right in this area you can see the little piece of metal right there, and it looks like it's being held on to this section of the strap. As you can tell, there's a ton of glue right up here, but it's actually coming across all the way over here where the screws are. There's two there, and all across the strap down in there. So it's a lot of, oh shoot, it's a lot of straps that a lot of glue that they used on there. I tried using a little bit of a thinning agent, hoping that maybe it was some form of rubber cement based or contact cement, but unfortunately that was not the case. It did nothing. So my only other assumption would be that it's some form of super glue type. So we're going to use some of this stuff here. It's the Uncure. We're going to just put it right here. Just like that. I'm going to give that a few minutes. I'm going to go grab some Q-tips, and we're going to try to clean off some of that glue because I can't even move those little screws there. So okay, so I tried cleaning some of it off. I put some more on the Q-tip here itself. So it seems like it's gotten a good amount. Use the dry end here just to take off some of the extra. Toss that out of the way, and let's see if I can get in here with the screwdriver. Alright, so obviously, as everyone can tell, it's a little bit of a struggle getting in there between these parts here and the camera and everything going on. So I'm going to have to kind of move the camera out of the way and take out that last screw by hand. It looks like whatever screw they used, it was designed to actually go through this entire accordion, then they shave it off because it's a little bit shaved off like that there. And no, it's not broken. It looks like it's has some shaved marks on there that probably can't be seen, but I'm gonna go ahead and take out that other screw and be back. Alright, so finally got that other screw out. Used a little bit more of this and let it sit there for a little bit. So now I can actually start pulling this thing away. I'm using a nail pry because it's got a little bit more of an angle, but I think I have to alternate between the heel pry and the nail pry back and forth, and just kind of be careful with it, at least as much as I can. Squeeze in here a little bit. Wrong one. And some of you might be saying, like, well, couldn't you undo this piece because the screwdriver couldn't get in there? Yes, there is some form of way of undoing it, but I'm not quite an expert when it comes to instruments, and there are certain parts that unfortunately I just don't touch and I can't touch. So I do the best I can. The best thing I can do is, if certain things may be able to come out easily, it's no problem. Like these buttons right here at top, as you can tell, they're moving the different individual parts. They don't just pop out. There's a specific way of having to either bend these rods to undo it, or you have to clip them completely and then end up replacing them. And I don't have replacement pieces that are like that. With instruments, certain types of materials have to be used to accommodate and be able to use that sound. So I don't want to screw that up. I want it to be as original as possible and go from there. But we've got this piece out. Thankfully it's come out a little bit easier, but the thing is like sticky. Hey, and looks like this thing, oops, and I just dropped it into my drawer. It's just one of these basic hooks here. So this looks basic, or maybe like a T-piece and they just ended up bending it. So Well, kind of gives me an idea of what it is that I'm at least working with. And so now I have to start replicating the strap. So at this point we're done with the instrument for the time being. So let me move things out of the way and start getting ready to work on that strap. Alright, so right now we need to take out this piece right here and remove that. Now I could easily try to pry this up and forcefully like take everything out, but instead I'm going to use first one of these tools here. It's kind of hard to see it, but it's basically like a little, I guess you can say almost like a sanding ball. In other words, used in jewelry a lot of times, and this machine that we're using on my table, on one of my tables, is technically for jewelry, but we use this a number of times for cobbler type related work. Put different attachments on. This thing is awesome. Grab some glasses because sometimes you get little metal shards that might fly around. We're just going to go in here and just kind of sand it just a little bit. That way it's going to be a lot easier to bend that metal so that we could take out these rivets here without damaging the metal piece, because we are trying to save that obviously. So let's go ahead and get going. Alright, there we go. So as soon as these areas of the studs start to spin on me a little bit, I know that they're a little more free now. So I'm going to let this cool off. I'm going to blow it off with some air because we got these metal dust particles all over and on my fingers too. So I'm going to blow all that off and let this sit and cool off because I don't want to mess with it. It's a little hot, and we'll go ahead and... Okay, so I've got the nylon strap that we're going to be using. This one is assembled. As you can tell, it's got a... kind of like a felt material, and it's got this really junky filler basically, and then the more important structure of this was the leather piece right here. That was kind of the key structural aspect of it, and that's not great. That's just unfortunately a weak build. So we're going to start out with a nylon strap first. Now obviously we got to measure out, make sure the length is the same on this one here. Okay, so that goes there, and then this one, oops, wrong end, was connected right there. So I'm gonna grab a silver marker and just kind of mark a little bit the length. Scissors. Now I go just a little bit longer on nylon from my marking, just because what happens is I grab a lighter. Nylon, if anyone's ever wondering if you have a backpack or anything that's a nylon webbing like this, nylon melts, so just take your lighter to it and heat it up nicely. And just take the back end, press it down a little bit because it is a little hot. I'm a little more on the side where I'm used to actually using my finger. That way I can really press it down all over, and voila, now these ends aren't going to fray up. So if you have a nylon strap, good little tip for you, that light goes there, just burn it. A lot of stitches are the same way on any bags, belts, jackets, chaps, shoes, boots. If you'll see a little nylon thread on there, clip it and take a lighter to it to finish it off. Typically almost all of them are a nylon material. Nylon is a little bit more durable for kind of everyday purpose and use, where the only ones that use cotton thread, which don't really melt, they actually just burn. Some don't because of the way that they treat that cotton, and that's designed for firefighter boots and fireproofing and stuff like that. So yeah, if you come across a pair that has some of that, just keep that in mind. You know, test out the nylon. If it doesn't melt and it's burning or smoking up, it means it's cotton, so there's not much you can do. Just kind of clip it as close as you can, and sometimes a little adhesive, just a small dab, will help too. Okay, so I'm gonna see if any of these sides are gonna pry up. With that, kind of stopped doing the strap, the new one at least, just because we're trying to figure out if this will come up on any end. Okay, let me grab one of my tools here real quick. Hang. Okay, so I had to test it out on one of them to make sure that it worked, and it worked pretty well. So I've got this tool here. Looks kind of terrifying to some, I know, but this is designed to move or remove certain rivets, hooks, and eyelets as well. And it's just kind of one of those tools that really comes in handy. And I actually haven't had this one for too long, so it's kind of exciting being able to use a new tool finally sometimes. But I'm just gonna put it in like that. The sharp end right there goes in the back end of the rivet, and this area that's rounded out goes on the front end where the rivet is. Press, pop. Look at that. Since we went through with that little diamond sander piece there, that back end just popped right out, basically snapped. And there we go. Beautiful. All right, so I'm gonna set this aside back up here in the little box. That's for marking, and I'll probably just throw these little rivets in the box, at least one set of them, so that in case I need to refer back for any kind of sizing or anything, anything particular that I might need, I like to set that aside. I've learned my lesson years ago that don't throw everything away all at once, even though you're not going to be reusing that part. You may need it for trying to use as a reference or something. So I'm going to set that aside. Before I forget, I got to put the metal piece in here as well. All right, and we're ready to continue on. Now, maybe some of you are thinking we're just going to be using nylon. No, this is our base. We've got some nice leather here. It's not too hard, not too soft, just right. I'm going to use that as kind of like a cover, in other words, for the leather strapping here. So I just got to find a good spot so we're not wasting too much of that leather. Now this leather, I do need it to kind of fold over like that, in other words. So I'm going to make sure I have enough for all of that. I'm going to have to use, or wait, I'm going to use my pen. If you ever come by my shop and I hand you this pen to use, you just don't drop it. This pen is heavy. I always get people saying, what kind of pen is that? It's technically a tactical pen, but I have a bad habit. If I put a plastic pen in my pocket, I tend to snap them sometimes because I have a tendency to lean into certain things with extra pressure. Like I'll lean up against the table if I'm trying to reach something up high, or on the machines as well. And I've broken plastic pens in my pocket, and I don't want to go through that again. It's not fun. Okay, that goes in the scrap pile. Scrap pile's on Janelle's side, so I'll just kind of toss it over to her. More leather, Janelle. But as you can tell, really rough cut, and you'll be able to at least cut everything out to see how it's going to fit, because I want it to fold over like that, and I want to see where everything is going to sit. So for the time being, I can at least, at the very least, glue this piece down just like that there, and then that way these edges, before I start gluing them, I can cut off any of the extra beforehand and just kind of see where it's going to sit. So just using our basic contact cement. Oh man, I don't have my little gluing pad here. I've been trying to stick towards using some form of pad or something to use this glue on, but I don't want to get Big Bertha, my big toolbox over here, all covered in glue. At least not yet. You know, over time she'll get some glue on her, but I don't want to ruin it yet. want to make this thing last as long as possible before having to do much to it. Now with something like this, we don't really need to glue both sides. We just glue one side. When most people have been watching my typical videos where I do resoles, we'll put glue on each side, the sole, the boot or shoe, and double glue it, sometimes single glue it. But when it comes to things like this, certain stitch and rip work like this, too much glue can actually be a little too much, in other words. So just the right amount, just putting it on just one side. There we go. I'm gonna put some weights on it. Did you have the weights there, Janelle?
Yeah.
Yeah, I can hand them.
There's two.
Okay, just got steel weights like this. Just gonna place those over top around certain areas. Probably put that there and there, and just let it sit there for a little bit until it kind of starts adhering nicely, and then I'll be able to remove them out of the way and start cutting that leather a little more accurately. So we'll see. So we've got everything kind of dried up, and I touched up the edges here with some more glue so that we could end up folding this over nicely. But while that is drying there, I'm going to go ahead and grab a piece of leather again, same one. At this point we can basically pick whatever color we want, but this gentleman seems like he'd rather have it, you know, a little more on the uniform side where all the rest of his straps are black. So I'm gonna grab our corner piece here and just take a knife and just start cutting. There we go. Okay, put that in the scrap pile, save that for later. Let's see, I had some markings here. Yep. Okay, I'm going to switch over to the other side and do the same thing because the width is different than this cutting piece here. I've got my mat here for cutting, so I'm going to switch that around and make sure I get the right width. Okay, so I measured out the width to be 1 5/8 inches that we're cutting. Now we're going to actually make this strap 1 1/4 inches. That's what the original one was. But that extra little bit that we're doing, that's to be able to fold that leather over, and we're just going to fold it over itself basically. Gives it a nice little finished edge, instead of having to deal with a rougher edge like this. Just folding it just a little bit like that right there, about 1/8 inch, really gives it a nice final finish on there. So just like that, and we'll go ahead and glue that up and start kind of laying it flat. It's a bit of a challenge just because getting it perfectly even when you're folding like that is actually difficult, surprisingly. If you think about it, when you're trying to fold it, one side might be overlapped just a little bit too much like that right there, and the other one might not be enough. So it's pretty much just having to do it, eyeballing it, and being very careful, and just years of practice pretty much. So I'm gonna go ahead and glue up those edges, and then go ahead and start doing that. I might just actually have another idea. I'm gonna even it out first with at least the fold here, because obviously I keep forgetting that I have other options to at least give it a fold. So if I even it out like this here, and then I grab my, if I can find it, give me a second real quick. Alright, well, so I ended up going ahead and just folding these edges so it looks a little bit nicer and smoother there to do that. And I did this side here, but I didn't do the other side, and I thought I'd show everybody what it kind of looks like. So I like to grab my heel pry again, and you can use a bone edge, I believe that's what it's called. It's a little tool that looks very similar to this, just a little more pointed, and it's usually either made out of bone or plastic, but for some reason I can't find mine. So I'll use the heel pry for now, but basically I'm just pushing this up against it at a 90-degree angle, right up against the side here. There we go. And then that way I could just fold the rest of this over, press it down with my fingers. Obviously, as you can tell, it's not even right under here, but that's going to get covered up anyways and stitched down. Grab my hammer. There we go. Now, basically I'll end up just laying this one over top like that, gluing it on there. It's not glued, obviously, but that's what it's going to look like, glued down. And then we can start running a stitch through. So let me go ahead and glue it all together, and we'll get ready to stitch. Alright everyone, so I've got everything glued up. I actually stitched one side of this just to see how well everything's turning out, and now we're going to go ahead and take care of the other side. We're over at one of our machines that's a little bit newer for us. It's a walking foot machine. So basically it has two individual feet that kind of take little steps. So okay. See, in this machine I'm still trying to get used to it a little bit, just because it has different features than our other ones, so it's a matter of getting adjusted to it and finding that kind of sweet spot. I also need to get what's called a guide for it, just like a drop down foot that helps guide it. I have a temporary piece right here that I'm experimenting with to see how well that might work, but I think getting one of those drop down foot ones will be a lot better for us. Okay. All right, there we go. I know we need more lighting here, but figuring things out still after this whole move and everything. But now I've got both sides stitched down, goes clear through right here, and it's ready for the next steps. So let's move back over to the workbench. So I don't know what's going on with my camera. I decided to go all haywire on me. But to recap what we're doing right now, what's going on, we ended up filling in the holes here with some super glue from where the where this hook was attached, right there. And use some fine dust from one of our sanders just to kind of get it going. It's not going to fill in the holes 100%. It's just enough to kind of rethread it so we have a better surface area for it to grip onto. We cut a hole or a slice and punched two holes for where the hook is sitting right there. That way it's going to hook in nicely. Obviously we're going to end up running, well, not running, we're going to put super glue on it afterwards, just like they did at the factory, because we don't want this hook just popping out on him while he's in the middle of playing. And then we punched the holes for where this piece of hardware goes back on. I apologize, for some reason my camera just went crazy and I couldn't record it all, but hopefully it's working right now. Now at this point, I'm gonna grab one of my rivets. I matched up these ones here. They seem to fit everything nicely. At least they seem like they do, so I haven't had a chance to quite test them yet. Okay. All right, so put the back piece in. Probably should have made the holes just a tiny bit bigger for everything to go through, so make sure it's all stretched out nicely. There we go. Okay, so we got the back piece in. Put the front piece on. Now, where did my tool go? I just had it. Give me a second to relocate it. There it is. So it's basically just one of these tools there that's going to help me press this in. Well, hit it in place properly. Okay. I'm just using my punch awl to kind of re-stretch the holes here that I punched in the leather and nylon there, so that way we can fit the different pieces of the rivets in. Now there are a number of rivets out there, I mean literally thousands of them, so trying to match them exact sometimes doesn't work out, sometimes it does. So if you have a particular rivet, we may look into it as far as being able to get an exact replacement or something at least remotely close, but some factories and some companies, they actually make their own, so getting an exact one is just impossible. So I thought I'd point that out to you real quick. Now we're getting close to being done with it. There we go. So we've got the strap section taken care of. Now we just gotta wait for that stuff to kind of sit there. It usually activates fairly good, but it's the end of the day, so I'm gonna let it sit there overnight. Tomorrow I'm gonna come in with the shop vac, clean out the excess amounts of dust that's in there. I don't want to use the compressor. Usually that's what we use to blow everything off, but if I start blowing that dust around, it can get into some of the hardware and other moving parts in the instrument, and we don't want that. So shop vac is the way that we're gonna go, but we'll just let it sit and take a break for a minute. But anyways, so far we're done with the strap, and the rest we need to start messing around with the screws everywhere, which it's not going to be too fun. So we'll see you back in Okay, so it's time to go ahead and start putting this back in. I'm going to take this little awl piece and just kind of help start the hole for where the screws are sitting. Okay. Now, typically you'd want to replace the screws, but again, because these have been shaved down and everything, and we don't accidentally want to have the screw go all the way through, we're gonna have to reuse the same ones. Now it's a matter of trying to be able to get them in place. So All right, so I got the screws in. I did end up going ahead and changing them out because it turns out the ones that I tend to use for my toe plates, if I can show it, actually use this to show it to you guys, they are the exact same length right there as the old ones. So it worked out perfect, and they worked a lot better. So I tried and it was just not one to cooperate or work. But now at this point, I'm going to grab my super glue and pretty much just start flooding this thing. I'm going to start out with, if I can get it to work, I'm going to have to grab my punch tool and open up the top of this some more. It's quite literally basically flooding it. Like, this is awkward for me because I don't typically do this kind of stuff, but that's how it was originally. So it seems like the best way to kind of like reinforce it, in other words. I'll grab my activating spray. Okay, spray it there just a little bit. Give it just a second. It starts activating that adhesive and hardening it. As soon as I see that it's evaporated well enough, I can press just a little bit in case there are like little bubble pockets or something, and I'll squeeze it out, and I'll just layer on one more coat. And again, this is how it was from the factory, so do the same thing. And voila. At this point, we're pretty much done on this side now. So all I have to really do is get this panel back on, because it's going to be curing for a little while anyways. And you know, thankfully it's not a airtight seal, it's not plastic, so there's enough airflow going through this so that it can cure nicely overnight. And then tomorrow morning, this gentleman's instrument is all ready to go. But for the time being, test out the pull. I'm going to pull on this strap just a tiny bit. No, that thing is in there solid. All right, we're done on that section, so let me switch things around and we'll start putting the panel. Okay, so ready for the panel to come back on, but we need to make sure that this button right here goes back into place. So in order for it to work, I need to grab my long needle-nose pliers and just kind of guide it in, because my fingers are just a little too fat to do it. Okay, there we go. Make sure everything's on there nicely. Now I'm going to start with the main screws, and then the reinforcement screws will go on last. Now typically, a lot of times with these kinds of screws, I like to add a little bit of an adhesive or a thread lock on it, but I really don't want to do that, not on the main ones, just in case if this gentleman needs to have access to it. When you add too much Loctite or any adhesive, it can start eventually corroding away at the wood, and just layer after layer it really weakens it, and you don't want to shorten the life expectancy of the instrument. We got a plan for future, not for just the now. Because for the now, adding that little drop of adhesive would be great, but our goal is to make sure this thing runs and operates smoothly, can be fine-tuned over years and years. Okay. I can see why he had these little reinforcement screws put in, and these look like they're most likely aftermarket type, just because this panel likes to bulge out just a hair. Let's see. Now, these little scratches, it looks like they've been like that after he put in the screw for some time, but just to make it a little nicer, I think I might go grab some acrylic paint and just touch it up a little bit, make it nice looking. There we go. Okay, I'm gonna go grab that acrylic paint and give this some final love and attention before we finalize. Alright, so we've got some Angelus acrylic paint here. The portion that says black has been worn out, but I do know that this is the regular black, not the matte finish. And because this is an acrylic paint, it settles over top nicely. It's not a pain to remove also. And just to kind of touch it up, use some finger motion here to even it out. The acrylic will also help seal up those little wood areas, basically, just to help save it for a longer period of time. There we go. Yeah, with an acrylic, it's easy to remove it, so down the road, if this gentleman does need to do any kind of maintenance or we need to do adjustments or anything on it, it won't be any kind of issue. Now we'll go ahead and aim this inside the hole here. See if I could do this on the first try. Yep, I think I got it. Beautiful. Alright. Now the gentleman can just adjust wherever he needs it to go. It's all ready and set. Okay, nice. Alright, so we're all done with this. Yeah, everything's good, holding on tight. All set. Hope you enjoyed the video. Something a little bit different from what we typically do, and something different for me too. It's definitely my first time working on having to actually take apart an accordion to be able to get access to it. I have dealt with parts for accordions, but not directly on the accordion such as this, so it was very interesting for me to work on it, and I hope you guys enjoyed a little bit of a change of pace with a different type of project. And the steps that we had to take. Obviously in our industry, everything is a learning experience. Every time we take apart, whether it's shoes, belts, bags, there might be something different, and we kind of have to do it kind of in a way where we learn from it. And that's a normal part of our industry, and that's why I love it so much, because you never get bored. There's something new every week. But I hope you enjoyed it. Comment down below for any questions or comments. Subscribe if you haven't, and definitely hit that notification bell icon for any future videos that we're going to be posting. And we'll see everyone next time.